When a man pulls away, it can feel like rejection. It can trigger deep insecurities and make you question whether his feelings were ever real. But here's what many women don't realize. Distance isn't always a sign of disinterest. In fact, when a man starts feeling emotions he's not ready for, when he begins falling deeper than he expected, he doesn't always lean in. Sometimes he steps back, not to leave you, but to understand what's happening inside him. This pulling away is not an absence of love. It's the confusion of a heart that wasn't expecting to feel so much. Men are often raised in a world that teaches them to suppress their emotions. Vulnerability is seen as weakness. So when a woman comes into their life and touches something real inside them, something soft, something raw, it's unfamiliar territory. He doesn't have the tools to navigate those waters. So instead of diving in, he retreats. He might stop calling as much, go quiet in conversations, or take longer to respond. And you, on the receiving end, may feel like you've done something wrong. But understand this. Emotional withdrawal can be a man's way of coping with the intensity of his attachment. When a man is genuinely hooked, when you're living rent-free in his head, it scares him. You become a part of his internal world in ways he didn't plan for. You affect his moods. You show up in his daydreams. You're in the lyrics of songs, in the pauses of his thoughts, in the spaces where logic used to live. That kind of emotional presence can feel overpowering to someone who hasn't been taught how to process deep love. So he distances himself not because he's over you, but because you matter more than he's ready to admit. This is why it's crucial not to chase. When he pulls back, resist the urge to fix it, to ask what's wrong, or to overextend yourself just to bring him back. Let him have his space. Your value isn't in proving your worth, it's in holding your ground. Let him feel the absence of your light. Let him notice what it feels like when your voice isn't there to soothe him. That's when he begins to realize just how hooked he truly is. Men need time to process what love means to them. They may not always have the emotional vocabulary to say it, but their actions tell the truth. When he returns, because if he's truly connected, you'll notice that he's different. He's more intentional, more present, more aware of what he nearly lost. But it all begins with you understanding that his distance isn't a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a sign that you've touched something real inside him. Sometimes space is not the enemy, it's the bridge that brings two souls closer. When you stop fearing the silence, when you let him walk through his emotional maze without trying to lead him out, you allow him to choose you from a place of clarity, not confusion. And that is far more powerful than any reassurance you could offer. So when he pulls away, don't panic. Don't try to fill the gap with over-explaining or emotional chasing. Stand in your power. Trust that what is meant for you will not flee from you. Sometimes love grows not in the noise, but in the quiet spaces between. One of the clearest signs that you're living in a man's head rent-free is when he starts asking questions about your life that go beyond the surface. He may seem distant at times, but then out of nowhere, he wants to know who you were with, where you've been, or what your plans are. He might try to act casual about it, disguising his curiosity with jokes or light teasing, but pay attention because underneath that laid-back tone is a mind spinning with thoughts of you. When a man is emotionally invested, even if he's not showing it outright, he can't help but seek connection, and often that connection begins with attention. These questions he asks might not always be direct. Sometimes it comes out as him remembering little things you told him weeks ago, your favorite coffee shop, a story about your childhood, or the way you always light a certain candle when you're trying to relax. If he's paying attention to details that others miss, it's not by accident. He's noticing you because you matter to him. And even if he's not verbalizing his feelings, his curiosity reveals it. Men don't put effort into understanding women they don't care about. When he's observing your patterns, noticing your energy, and remembering your preferences, it means you've made a mark on his emotional landscape. But here's what's even more powerful. When you don't immediately feed him answers, when you remain a little mysterious, a little unpredictable, it draws him in deeper, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that honors your individuality. You're not just handing over your soul on a silver platter. You're letting him discover you layer by layer, which gives him something meaningful to hold on to. That unfolding makes him feel like he's earning access to your world, and that effort creates emotional investment. There's a kind of emotional gravity that pulls men toward women who don't overshare, who don't need validation, who are rooted in themselves. When you're calm in your energy, grounded in your truth, and unbothered by his silence or distance, he starts wondering why. He starts wanting to know what makes you different. Why aren't you reacting the way others might? Why aren't you chasing him, over-explaining, or needing his attention to feel complete? That mystery creates emotional tension, and that tension builds attraction. Not just physical attraction, but the kind that stirs his thoughts late at night when he's alone. When you see a man who seems distant but still manages to circle back to your world, it's often because his heart and mind are wrestling. Part of him wants to stay detached, safe, logical, in control. But the other part of him is drawn to your energy, to the peace he feels in your presence, to the way you move through life without needing to prove anything. And so he hovers, he keeps one foot in, even while pretending he's not fully there. That's not confusion, that's internal conflict, and it's almost always born from deep emotional impact. That's why your role isn't to convince him to stay or explain your worth. Your role is to stay anchored. Let him circle. Let him wonder. Let him ask questions and feel the weight of not having all the answers. Because in that space of curiosity, of wondering who you truly are and what it would mean to lose you, a man finds clarity. That clarity brings him back, not just physically, but emotionally present, ready and more in tune with how deeply you've rooted yourself inside his thoughts. Sometimes the loudest statement you can make is your silence. And the most attractive thing you can do is allow him the space to realize what your presence actually means in his life. When a man is emotionally hooked but acting distant, one of the most telling signs is his sudden shift in behavior when other men show interest in you. He may not say it outright, but his energy changes. Maybe he becomes a little colder, a little more possessive, or even tries to reinsert himself into your life just when you're moving on. That's not coincidence. It's his subconscious reaction to the fear of losing you. You see, when a woman is truly in a man's head, her attention becomes something he values deeply. Even if he hasn't fully claimed you or committed, the idea of you giving your energy to someone else stirs something primal inside him. It triggers a response that often overrides logic and pulls him back in. You might be posting a picture online, maybe you're out with friends or simply glowing in your feminine energy, and suddenly here he comes, a message, a like, a comment, maybe even a call out of the blue. What's happening is this: he's watching, and whether he admits it or not, he feels a sense of urgency when he sees you moving forward without him. Men are wired to pursue what they fear losing. If he sees another man stepping into the space he once occupied or thought he still had access to, it forces him to reconsider what he's about to let go of. It doesn't matter if he was the one pulling away. It doesn't matter if he acted uninterested. The idea of you belonging to someone else will stir a part of him he didn't know was so connected to you. But here's where your power lies: in your refusal to shrink or chase. When you continue living fully, unapologetically, embracing your joy, your peace, your radiance without trying to make him jealous, it speaks louder than any words ever could. You're showing him that your life doesn't stop when he withdraws. You're showing him that your value isn't up for debate. And that sends a clear message: you are the prize. That confidence, that energy, it's magnetic. And he feels it. You don't have to parade new connections or force yourself to be seen. Simply being in your power and visible to the world is enough. When a woman is operating from a place of self-worth, her presence speaks volumes. It draws attention naturally, and he notices. His mind starts replaying memories. His heart starts questioning his distance. And suddenly the man who was acting cold becomes curious again. That's not manipulation, it's alignment. It's what happens when you choose yourself instead of chasing someone who's unsure. Sometimes he won't admit his discomfort. He may try to act like he's unbothered, but actions speak louder than silence. If he suddenly wants to check in, if he brings up the past, if he asks what you've been up to with more interest than usual, those are signs. Signs that you're still living in his thoughts. Signs that your absence is louder than your presence ever was. And that's powerful. Because when a man feels the contrast between your silence and his longing, it disrupts his sense of control. He starts to feel the weight of your distance, and that's when clarity hits him hardest. The key is not to react. Don't rush back. Don't explain yourself. Let your energy speak. Let your joy radiate. Let your peace be louder than any of his confusion. Because when a woman stands strong in her essence, she doesn't need to be chosen, she chooses. And if he truly values you, he'll come forward with intention, not confusion. Keep glowing, keep growing. Let your presence be the reminder of what he almost lost. Another undeniable sign that you're deeply in his head, even if he's acting distant, is when he starts mirroring your energy. It may not be obvious at first, but pay close attention. When a man is mentally and emotionally attached to a woman, even if he tries to hide it, his behavior unconsciously begins to reflect hers. If you're calm, detached, and focused on your life, suddenly he slows down too. If you pull back your energy, he starts to match that shift. And while he might pretend he's simply busy or going through something, what's actually happening is that he's emotionally syncing with you without realizing it. You see, when you've impacted a man on a deep level, he doesn't just remember you in words or memories, he remembers you in behavior. Your vibe lingers. He starts thinking the way you think, replying the way you used to reply, using language or expressions that you always used. He might even adopt new habits that were once yours. That's not coincidence. That's influence. And it's powerful. He may not talk about it openly, but inside he's processing you constantly. His mind is sorting through what he felt when he was around you, your energy, your softness, your confidence, and now even in your absence, it's replaying in subtle ways. This mirroring becomes even more obvious in conversations. He might echo your words, your tone, your way of phrasing things. He could bring up things you were passionate about or start paying attention to topics you once discussed. It's like his subconscious is still trying to stay connected to you, even if he outwardly acts indifferent. Men aren't always verbal about their emotions, but their behavior often betrays the truth. And when a man starts to mirror your energy, it means you're living rent-free in his mind. Sometimes this mirroring shows up as emotional confusion on his part. One moment he's cold and distant. The next he's reaching out just to say hello or reacting to your story after weeks of silence. He's trying to find emotional footing. He doesn't understand why he still feels connected. He thought pulling away would free him, but instead it made your energy more noticeable. And now he can't escape it because you've touched something deeper than surface level attraction. You've awakened something in him that lingers even when you're not physically there. What's most important is how you respond. The power lies in your restraint. You don't need to react. You don't need to mirror him back. You've already made an impact. And when a woman learns to let her energy speak louder than her words, she becomes unforgettable. Your energy created a rhythm in his life, and now that rhythm continues in his own behavior. That's why mirroring is such a revealing sign, because it's involuntary. It means you've influenced his thoughts, his feelings, and now his choices. Remember, distance doesn't always mean disinterest. Sometimes it's a man's way of trying to gain control over feelings he didn't expect to have. But if he's mirroring you, if his actions begin to echo yours, then you've already entered a space in his mind that he can't easily close off. Stay grounded in your truth and let that inner stillness be your strength. He's watching, he's feeling, and he's remembering even when he pretends he's not. And that's how you know you're in his head even in silence. When a man is truly hooked on you, even while pretending to be distant, one of the clearest signs is how he reacts to your absence. Silence speaks volumes, and the way he handles the void you leave says everything about how deeply he's affected. A man who doesn't care won't flinch when you disappear, but a man who's emotionally entangled will feel your absence like a missing piece in his day. Suddenly, your name echoes in places he didn't expect. A certain song reminds him of you. A familiar scent catches him off guard. And without warning, he finds himself replaying conversations, rereading messages, and wondering why he can't just move on. What he may not understand is that your presence created it gave him stability, warmth, attention, or even challenge. And once you step back, that energy leaves a gap. The more connected he was, even if he didn't say it out loud, the more intense that void becomes. This isn't just about missing the routine of you, it's about feeling the emotional charge that your presence brought to his life. Your laughter, your wisdom, your passion, your silence, each of those left an imprint, and now without it, there's a quiet internal shift that he can't ignore. That's why men often act up when you're gone. Suddenly, he might start posting more, acting unusually active online, or liking your old pictures. Maybe he texts you out of nowhere with no clear reason just to say, hey, or maybe he doesn't reach out at all but keeps watching your stories like clockwork. These are all signs that your absence is loud in his world. Even if he's surrounded by people or distractions, there's a certain weight missing, and that weight is you. It's important to understand that men aren't always aware of this feeling in the moment. Some will try to numb it, ignore it, or replace it. But the energy you bring isn't easily duplicated. Absence works in a way that forces reflection. It creates emotional space for him to compare and contrast. That's when he begins to realize what made you different, what made you feel like home in a world full of noise. And when a man starts realizing that no one else makes him feel the way you did, he doesn't just miss you, he starts needing you. But here's the key, this realization only happens when you give space. Constant contact or chasing behavior robs him of that experience. True power is in stepping back, not to manipulate, but to allow him the chance to feel your value. This is where your strength lies, not in proving your worth, but in being secure enough to let your absence do the talking. When a woman stops overgiving and steps into stillness, she reclaims her emotional power. She becomes magnetic, not because she demands attention, but because her energy is felt even when she's not present. That is the essence of emotional influence, when someone can't stop thinking about you even though you've gone quiet. If he starts acting restless, reaching out inconsistently, or testing the waters with subtle gestures, it's not because he's bored, it's because he's feeling the tension of missing you, and deep down he's wondering if you miss him too. But your silence is not a game, it's a boundary. It's your way of protecting your peace while allowing him the room to realize what he had and what he stands to lose. And that's the beauty of absence. When you've truly touched a man's heart, your silence becomes louder than any words you could ever speak. When a man is truly hooked on you, even if he's acting distant, one of the final signs is how he begins to act when he thinks you're slipping away. He may be silent, aloof, or detached at times, but the moment he senses that your energy is pulling back, that you're no longer fully available or emotionally accessible, something inside him shifts. He may not show it clearly, and he may not say the words out loud, but his actions will start to betray the truth he's trying to hide. This shift could look like sudden interest in your life again. He might ask how you're doing, who you're spending time with, or what you're up to, even if it's disguised as casual conversation. These questions are rooted in fear, fear that you're replacing him, fear that you're no longer thinking about him, fear that his position in your world is being threatened. The emotional pull he once felt from you is fading, and that panic starts to build beneath the surface. That's when he becomes reactive, not necessarily expressive, but reactive. This reaction might come through passive-aggressive comments, sudden neediness, or inconsistent attempts to reinsert himself in your orbit. He might joke about you forgetting him or accuse you of changing. Deep down, what he's really saying is, I don't know how to deal with losing your attention. When a man is truly affected by you, when you've touched his heart and stimulated his mind, he cannot tolerate the idea of becoming irrelevant to you. That's not about ego, that's about emotional imprint. You've taken up space in his psyche and now he's scrambling to reclaim it before someone else does. Even when he doesn't have the emotional maturity to communicate openly, you'll see signs in his behavior. He may start to mirror your energy, being distant when you're distant, or suddenly becoming warm and affectionate when he feels like you've truly pulled back. He might suddenly show up in unexpected ways, sending a song, liking a story, bringing up inside jokes from the past, just to remind you that he's still there. These aren't coincidences. These are signals that your presence still matters more than he's willing to admit. The truth is, emotional distance is often a man's shield. He acts cool because vulnerability feels risky. But when he feels like he's losing you, especially when you stop giving without receiving, when you set boundaries or when you redirect your focus inward, he's forced to confront that distance. He begins to realize that emotional detachment isn't a strategy anymore. It's a danger. Because the very woman he tried to hold at arm's length is now the one slipping out of reach. But here's what matters most, your reaction. When you respond with grace, when you hold your power, when you don't chase or seek validation, you confirm what he's starting to realize, that you are the prize, that your energy is sacred, that you don't beg for love, you attract it. A queen doesn't scream for a man's attention. She moves with peace and poise, knowing that what is meant for her will rise to meet her. And that energy is what leaves the deepest impact. It lingers long after the conversations fade, after the calls stop, and even after the physical connection ends. If he's truly hooked, even in silence, even from a distance, he won't be able to forget the way you made him feel. And once a man has tasted emotional connection, that deep, no surface level distraction will ever be enough. He might not know how to say it. He might not even show it in obvious ways, but believe this, when you start to slip away and he feels it in his bones, that's when he knows. That's when he realizes he was never detached. He was just afraid. And in that moment, you're not just on his mind, you're in it.